Good morning, everybody. Today I want to give you a review of the A6600. I'm currently in the Lake District in the United Kingdom. I'm going to go all around the national park, and I thought this is a great opportunity to give you a real-world test of this camera. I'm going to go right in depth of its usability and how good it is in the practical world. I'm not one of the best videographers in the world, so if I can get great footage from it, I know that you can. So in this video, I want to give you a real world test of how this camera can perform and if it is the camera for you. Sure if I'm properly exposed here, so it's hard for me to tell. The issue with this camera is that Sony thought it'd be a really good idea to put the microphone mount in front of the flip out screen. I don't know why they did that, but that's what they did, and that's probably the biggest downfall of the Sony A6600 and any of the new Sony ranges. And you can buy adapters that can put the microphone to the side, so if you are blogging like I am now, it's quite difficult to know exactly what's going on. This might be completely unusable footage, so if I'm not properly exposed, it's not me, it's probably because I should have taken more time to look at how well I am exposed. So I'm now back home from the Lake District, having used the Sony A6600 in a real world test, and I've got some thoughts on how the usability was. First of all, the thing that really impressed me is this lens. So I filmed everything that you saw, and I'm currently filming on the Sony 16-55 F2.8 G Master lens. This is the lens that Sony specifically created to go with this camera, and you can see the benefits of it. With this lens, the F2.8 is one of the best things I've seen on any APS-C camera, and I think this is probably one of the best APS-C lenses you can get. Now, obviously, because of the F2.8 and it's a Sony G Master lens, it is not cheap. I think you can pick up this lens for about £900 to £1,000. Now obviously that is a big investment, but as I said, this is one of the best lenses I think you can get on any APS-C camera, and for me it was worth paying that extra money because the quality of it was so good. Another reason why I chose this lens is because of the focal length. 16-55, between them focal lengths is the most commonly used. For me anyway, it's the most that I use. So to have it all on one lens is an absolute lifesaver. Specifically because I'm looking to use this for travel and I don't want to be switching prime lenses out all of the time. And this is one of the reasons why I decided on this lens. Now there are a number of alternative lenses that you can get the R cheaper, which will fit this Sony A6600. And one that is worth mentioning is the Tamron, I think it's 27 to 75mm, which is also an f2.8. And Dana actually did a great review on this lens, and I've linked that down in the description because I don't have one, so I can't give a fair review. But from what I've read about it, it's just not as sharp as this lens, and for me, I just wanted that quality, and I knew I would regret it if I didn't go for this lens, and that's why I went for it. So if you are umming and ahhing between this lens, I would highly recommend it. It produces super sharp images and you won't regret it. And it's also worth mentioning that this camera and that lens are also weather sealed. So if you are planning on using this for travel and going for various different places and it rains, it doesn't matter. It actually is weather sealed, and I actually used it when I was on my trip of the Lake District. Obviously the footage is unusable because the wind was so heavy. You can't hear what I'm saying. There was water all over the lens, but the camera come through with it. It was heavy rain, weather sealed, so I didn't actually worry about water getting into the camera while I was shooting. Now, one of the most impressive features I realized while using this camera was the autofocus. It is so good. Now, because I am using native lens, obviously the responsiveness of the autofocus is going to be better, but from what I've read, it is still pretty responsive even if you are using like a Sigma or a Tamron lens. You can move all over the place and it won't lose focus, or it will change very, very quickly. I hope you enjoyed that little shot of me moving around really quickly, but just to show you how good the autofocus was and how quick it moved. Now, obviously, with any autofocus, it isn't perfect. Right now, doing these kind of videos, it's amazing, and when you're vlogging, it's really good. But if you suddenly switch the camera like I did at this point when I was making a video, I went onto my shoot, it autofocused really, really quickly, but then when I went back to my face, it wouldn't focus onto it. Now, the reason why it's done this is because it has something called spot focus, and spot focus is something where it tries to detect what you want to focus on, and it will try and keep that same focus. But you can cancel this by simply clicking the big center button. But, and this is another issue with the camera, which I explained on the video, the issue is because they have the mic right in front of the flip out screen, I can't see that amount of focus, nor can I see the option that's telling me to cancel the spot focus. So I filmed that, thought I did a great take, and then actually found out that it was out of focus this whole time. So there are little things like that which is a bit irritating, but overall the autofocus does perform well. It's just a case of trying to learn the camera. So in future use, when I use it, I'll always make sure that I try to ensure that the spot focus isn't constantly on. Now, the A6600 actually comes with a number of different picture profiles that you can use. That's from S-Log2, S-Log3, Cine2s, Cine4, and most importantly, which people are really excited about, is the HLG settings as well. Now, the footage that you just watched was actually shot on Cine2, and what I'm filming in right now is Cine4 in the specific settings that I've used. And for me, the Cine profiles are actually the best profiles, partly because they're really, really easy to color grade, and they still give you really good footage. And although this camera does offer S-Log2 and S-Log3, I don't see the point in using them. The reason being is that this is an 8-bit camera. The reason why this is an issue with S-Log2 and 3 is because to get them back to a natural look, you have to pull them around quite a lot. And usually 8-bit footage doesn't usually let you pull it around too much. But if it's shot in 10-bit, then this wouldn't be a problem at all. But with it, because it is 8-bit, you will find that sometimes some colors and some shadows and highlights might start to foul. So this is why I generally would advise only sticking to the Cine or H-Log picture profiles. That's because you get an easiest to get a very achievable look, especially when you're working with 8-bit cameras. Now, this isn't specific to the A6600. This can still apply to the Sony A7 III, which is a full frame camera. So don't think that that is a negative of this camera. That's just generally a negative of any 8-bit cameras. If you really want to use S-Log2 or S-Log3, then I would suggest maybe looking at a 10-bit camera. Obviously, people will still get great results from using an S-Log2 on an A6600, but for me, I'm not an expert in color grading, so I wouldn't want to dabble in filming an entire trip or entire day filming on S-Log to then come back and find that I can't retrieve that footage, so it's always safer for me to use the Cine or H-Log picture profiles. And this actually leads quite nicely to the Sony colors. This is a very debatable subject, and a lot of people say Sony have come a long way with getting better colors. Now, having come from a Canon camera to a Sony camera, I must admit, I've realized that the colors in Canon, if I'm really honest, do look better straight out of camera. But I think you will want to see this yourself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this camera to no picture profile and no color grading or anything like that to see, so you can see how this looks straight out of camera. So I was just editing this video and I realized I did something really stupid. I didn't actually use the right picture profile when I switched. So I'm gonna do it again. So let's just ignore that happened, and boom, here we are. So this is the Sony straight out of camera look. I've done no grade on this whatsoever. What do you think it looks like? I think this looks really good, and I actually watched a great video from a YouTuber called the Icelandic guy who's got an awesome channel, and I'd fully check him out, where he did a video. People were asking him, how did he get them colors? And actually it's because he used it straight out of camera. He didn't use any picture profiles. So it shows you sometimes you don't need to use all these Cine 4, Cine 2s, S-Logs. Sometimes straight out of camera looks good. So this is an example of how this camera can look straight out of camera. So I think Sony colours are getting better, but they're not as good as Canon colours. After I've said this about the colours, you might say, well then the obvious choice is not to get this camera, but before you say that, one of the reasons why I did get this, because the quality of the video on this camera for me is better than Canon. The reason being is that the 4K on the Sony cameras and on the A6600 is rendered down from 6K. So it's actually filming in 6 and then becomes 4, whereas a Canon will film in 1080 and bring it up to 4K. So you actually get a crisper, sharper video from the A6600. Although I still find that for some reason some of the colours can be a little bit on the green or blue side. This takes a few seconds to sort out in Final Cut in post editing. I just do I just add a little bit of a tint and it's gone. So for me, it's not much of a big issue, and to get that extra quality in the image is worth the sacrifice just for a few seconds editing it in post-production. Now, one of the main topics of my channel is travels. So some of you might be watching this thinking, I want the perfect travel camera setup. And this for me is the perfect travel camera setup, because the size of the camera is very small and compact, which is so important when I'm taking it around various different places. I never once, when I was walking around the Lake District, thought that this camera is too big, it's too clunky. And even when I put the lens on it, which is quite a sizable lens to be honest with you, I still found it nice and light. Now if we compare this to the A6400, the battery life isn't that great, but because they've now got the bigger batteries that I found on their Sony A7 ranges, the batteries lasted all day. So for me, I went out and did a whole day of footage, whole day of filming when I was in the Lake District, and come back, put the camera on charge, and was good to use it again. I never once ran out of battery power. So I think this is a huge plus of this camera, and for me it was one of the big reasons why I went for the A6600 and not the 6400. I think the battery is a big thing. Now obviously the other thing the A6600 offers and the A6400 doesn't offer is IBIS, which is really important if you're going to be doing quite a lot of vlogging and things like that, and you want that little bit of steadiness in your shot. You will find that IBIS is really helpful. Another big reason why I did end up going for this camera is because of that in-body image stabilization. Obviously you're not going to get like a gimbal-like stability, but it just gives that little bit extra when you are moving the camera and doing different types of filming, and the IBIS on this camera is really good. Obviously you could negate this by getting a lens that has image stabilization in it, so that means that could be an offer for you, but none of the Sony lenses doesn't actually offer that, which I do think is quite poor from Sony, if I'm really honest, considering you spend £900,000 on this lens. It doesn't have in-body build stabilization. I think they've taken an eco choice there where they're trying to force you to get the A6600 if I'm honest. But for me, with the battery life as well, it kind of come to me as having everything that I wanted in the one camera. Now the thing with this camera as well is it does come with a flip out screen, and also the flip out screen is really helpful when you're going to be doing some vlogging, but the issue is, which I talked about before, is the microphone mount is right in front of where the flip out screen comes out. So this is really irritating, and I'll just show you what it looks like when I have this set up for a vlog. I've now switched cameras to my old Canon 600D, so apologies if the audio isn't as good, because I've had to put my microphone on here to demonstrate to you what this is like. So as you can see, if you're trying to vlog on this camera, you can see the flip out screen just here is actually right in the way when you have this microphone on it. It's a really big and poor design flaw for me, and you can buy attachments for this which puts the microphone mount just here so you can see yourself on screen. But I just don't understand why Sony have done this. If they really wanted this microphone mount here, why not do what Canon do when it comes around the side, or any other camera for that matter? It just seems a bit stupid, but that is the biggest issue with this camera if you are trying to vlog. But to be honest with you, I have got around it. It isn't a deal breaker for me, I've got around it. It's just annoying that they've had to do this. Now what's the conclusion of this camera? Well, for me, I think the A6600 is the absolute best APS-C camera on the market right now. The new cameras are coming out time and time again, so it's really difficult to know when is the right time to buy it, and I found that as an issue. But as someone who has gone out and bought this camera with my own money, I can say I had no regrets in buying this camera. This is the best APS-C camera you can buy. It's got great battery life, has great selection of picture profiles, has inbuilt body stabilization, and is weather sealed and is solid and will last you years and years and years. The biggest issue probably with this, what a lot of people have, is the cost. If you get this Sony native lens and the camera, you're looking at about £2,500, which is going into full frame kind of money. And a lot of people have kind of said that you can actually buy the A7S III and a cheaper lens for the same price. That's kind of shook me, and I was very close to actually buying a full frame camera with a cheaper lens for that exact reason. But the reason why I didn't is because of the ecosystem. Whilst yes, this is a very expensive lens for an APS-C, but generally speaking, APS-C lenses are cheaper every time. So when I want to get another lens, I know I'm not going to have to break the bank to buy it. As someone who isn't a fully professional videographer and someone that is really a bit of a hobbyist, I don't feel the need to have a full frame camera. I know I can produce these YouTube videos, can produce great video holiday vlogs that I want to make using this setup, using this camera. If I went to get a new lens on this camera, I could be talking for a prime lens, maybe get a nice Sigma lens for around £300. But to get the same equivalent lens full frame, I could pay triple the price. And this was a really big thing for me, and that's one of the reasons why I did end up paying for this camera, because this is a very high performance camera. And if you're thinking about getting an APS-C LED camera but you're worried about that you'll miss out on something by getting a full frame, trust me, you won't. The Icelandic guy actually did a really good video on why he chose APS-C camera over a full frame camera, and his quality of the stuff he produces is amazing. I've linked his video down in the description if you want to go and watch that. If the balance between full frame and APS-C is something you can't really get your head around at the moment and you're kind of debating it, that is a great video to watch. It really helped me go ahead and buy this APS-C camera. If there's some questions that you still want answered, please let me know down in the comments below, and I'll try my best to get back to you as soon as I can. I think this is the ultimate travel setup. If you are someone who's looking to travel and want the best quality camera in the smallest size, this for me is the best setup you can get on the market right now. That is why I bought it, and that is why I intend to take this camera around the world with me. So if you're going to watch these videos, all the footage you're seeing is going to be shot on this camera. So if you like it, then the chances are you're going to get on with it too. As I said, if you have any questions, let me know down in the comments. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I will catch you on the next video. See you later.